Hello, you wonderful people. Good evening. It is Roy here, sometimes known as British English Teacher Roy from English Right Now. Good evening. How are you? Let me know where you're watching from, what you're doing. Grazie Porter is here. Hello. BW says, hi all. I feel that 1 hour is too short. Well, if you join the courses or something like that, there are many more hours of me, including live sessions each week on the pronunciation course. Kame says, good evening, everybody. Hello, welcome. Manisco, you're right. And David says, hi there. Is it a live stream or a recorded video? This is completely live. I am live here. Anything can happen. Sarah, hello, welcome. Annalise, hello. Shien, always one of the first. So, welcome to this evening's class. On today, we're not just taking a journey. We're going to take a big journey, actually. We're not just down the motorway, but we're going to go deep into British cars, roads, and driving culture. You're going to learn essential vocabulary. Well, let me show you what you're going to learn. You're going to learn essential vocabulary for cars and roads. These are, of course, British English words. So I will talk somewhat about the American equivalents in some cases. But these are the British English words because I am British English Teacher Roy. You're also going to learn some useful verbs for driving. You'll learn some British slang and maybe some idioms from the road. And most importantly, what all of this tells us about British culture itself. And trust me, once you understand how the British drive, you'll learn a lot about how the British live. And of course, I did mention if you do enjoy these kind of lessons, hour-long lessons each week, every week we do a new lesson on YouTube. And after a few days, this lesson will get taken down and added to an exclusive members club. It's called the British English Lesson Library. There you can find hours upon hours upon hours of me teaching lessons on everything from phrasal verbs to goodness knows what. And there is some exclusive content on the way as well that will only be for the English Right Now community that is part of the British English Lesson Library. Yes, a WhatsApp group as well, which is awesome. To learn more about that, there is a link in the description. So enjoy that, and let's get on with the show. So first of all, British people drive on the left. This is really important. I understand that for some of you who drive on the right, the idea of us driving on the left is completely weird. But likewise, for us, when we go abroad, sometimes it can be a bit of a tricky process. Now, bear in mind that the pedals are still the same. So when I went to America, you have the clutch, something we'll talk about. The clutch is a pedal you push down to change gear. You have the brake in the middle and the accelerator on the right. It's exactly the same whether you drive on the left or the right. The difference is the steering wheel's on the other side and the gear stick is kind of in reverse, but the pedals themselves seem to be the same way round. So why do we drive on the left? Is it because we just want to be different? Yes. No, it's not. So this goes back a long, long way. Apparently, because most people were right-handed, horses were ridden on the left to keep the right hand free for greetings and maybe drawing a sword. So it's basically a sort of a way of being able to defend yourself. So that's why we drive on the left. And apparently, in 1773, London passed a law requiring all traffic on London Bridge to keep on the left. And this kind of spread nationally. Now, you may think, is it just the British who drive on the left? No. In fact, probably some of you here tonight, you also drive on the left. Countries like India, Australia, who have a sort of, oh dear, who have a link to us in the past, but also Japan drive on the left. And somewhere between 35 and 45% of the world's population drive on the left. So it's not just Britain who likes to be different. There are other nations as well. And honestly, I can honestly say when I travel to places like Italy and Spain, driving on the opposite side of the road feels crazy, but it's normal because it's the same for you when you come here. It can be terrifying at first, but it does get natural. So let's get down to business and talk about our first key pieces of vocabulary. You drive on the right in Egypt. Yeah. Okay, cool. Hello, Anna. Welcome, 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 welcome. what's your opinion? Which major is more interesting? So major, we don't talk about majors, by the way, in British universities. I personally love linguistics and languages, so that would be my uh, choice. But also, obviously, TESOL there, I find them one and the same. I think you should understand linguistics to also understand how to teach TESOL. And if you are interested in English, I'd definitely say you should probably love reading and literature as well. I hope that answers your question. So for me, I mean, linguistics, you need to understand linguistics and certain elements of it to teach. Um, yeah. So first of all, we have the windscreen. Windscreen. Notice that I dropped the D, so it's windscreen. Windscreen. That's because the D it comes between two consonant sounds. This is the big piece of glass at the front of the car. So it's the thing when we're driving along, you look out of because it basically screens you from the wind. It protects you from the wind. In America, it's called a windshield. So we call it a windscreen and a windshield. Both are quite logical. If you say windshield in the UK, most people understand. Probably likewise. And it does rain a lot in the UK. And those things that nip, 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 like this, that clean the rain off, that move the rain off the windscreen, are called windscreen wipers. Windscreen wipers. And we often put them on at full speed. They often have different speeds and we're often quite high up. So, can anybody tell me what the boot is? Let's do a bit of a test. What is the boot of a car? Somebody tell me what a boot is. Hello? I'm doing testing. I'm testing you now. Yeah, it's kind of the back of the car. Yes, Christina. Okay, so the Americans say trunk, we say boot. So this again, some of these words, if you use the kind of American words, British people, it's not wrong, but British people will kind of correct you if you're in the UK. So if you say, "Oh, I need you to look in the trunk," they'll go, "Oh, the boot, the boot." Okay, we'll understand, but we'll kind of change it for the British word. There are some words that British people kind of let go, and there are other words that people change, I think. So this is the back storage space. In my car, there are a range of toys, random things that my child has thrown in there, and occasionally there's a lot of work stuff as well. So that's the boot. The opposite end of the car, the front, is the bonnet. The bonnet. So we lift the bonnet up and check the engine. And in fact, there's a really interesting idiom that says, look under the bonnet. Look under the bonnet. This means to, so if we say look under the bonnet, it means we're going to check what's really happening beneath the surface. It doesn't need to be specifically about cars. So I might say, look, this project is a bit weird. Let's look under the bonnet and see what's going wrong. Okay, so look under the bonnet. But the bonnet literally is the front bit where we lift up. Then, does anybody know what that is in American English? And I'm not teaching American English, but goodness me, why not spread a bit of love across the Atlantic? Hello. So our bonnet, and bonnet is also a type of hat, which is where the word comes from. Does anybody know how they say, the Americans say? Anybody know? Have a bee in your bonnet. Yeah, this actually I taught this the other day. Did I ever put this out? So to have a bee in one's bonnet basically means to have an idea that's constantly sort of in your head and you can't stop thinking about or talking about. God, he's got a real bee in his bonnet today. He keeps talking about it. That's not related to the car. It's related to the hat. So I'll tell you, because no one's answering at the moment, the American equivalent of bonnet is hood. Hood, under the hood. So what's it called to support the bonnet? Like the stick, the kind of, what is that called? I would just call it a stick. There probably is a professional word, but I'll be honest. A lot of these words they're like unimportant, but I would say like the stick, put the stick up, or put the bonnet up is basically what we say. It would be a rod, I think, is the best way of putting that. So, indicators. Under the hood is also the American equivalent of under the bonnet. Look under the bonnet. So, indicators are the flashing lights that signal a direction. Okay, so on the side of the car, the front of the car, you have those amber lights that flash. So if you've got the right indicator on, the right side of the car should be flashing, back and front, and on the side. Left indicator, we'll talk about in a moment. What if they both come on? But they signal the direction we're about to turn. In Britain, I believe that not using them, is practically a crime. It is a road traffic offence if you turn without using your indicator. But also, we're going to talk about culture tonight because British people, to a certain degree, very polite, very courteous, but behind the wheel, they can become a bit more agitated, particularly in their own car. So they'll be like, oh, for God's sake, oh, look. Not necessarily overtly vocal, but we get more frustrated. And if you don't use your indicators in the UK, people will get very angry. And often you'll hear, if somebody doesn't indicate, you'll hear them wind down the window and go, thanks for indicating, mate. Thank you. Sarcasm. Wing mirrors are your side mirrors. So on the side of the car, there are two. Oh, I forgot to say, if both indicators are on, there is a button that looks like that to say that you've broken down. We call those your hazards, your hazard lights. So some people just call them hazards, but they are hazard lights. So if both indicators are flashing at the same time, they're called your hazard lights. The wing mirrors are your side mirror. The main mirror in the car is in at the top, and the side mirrors, oh, I don't know why it's gone twice. The side mirrors help you see left and right. Those are the wing mirrors. They're called the wing mirrors. And honestly, narrow country lanes in the UK often lead to broken wing mirrors. Let's do a few more. Let's do a few more before we sort of talk about a bit about culture. So first up, we have the number plate. This is your registration plate. I believe the Americans call it a license plate. On the front of the car. That's a good question. I will get to that. But basically, if you're going straight ahead, you don't use indicators. If you're going left, you put your left indicator. You're going right, you put your right indicator on. If you are going round the roundabout and you are heading to the right area, you would put your right indicator on to go round the roundabout. And then once you're on the roundabout, you can kind of stop indicating until you get close to the exit that you want to get to. So you should get into the appropriate lane and use the indicator to move off of the roundabout. So if it's a bigger roundabout, if it's a small roundabout, left, right, straight on, no indicator straight on. But if it's a bigger roundabout, go onto the roundabout, use your right indicator if you're turning right, and then flip it to the left once you're coming off. But you should basically help people understand which way you're going. So your number plate is your registration plate. The ones on the UK cars are white at the front and yellow at the back. And quite often we have personalized number plates. Some people think they seem a bit flashy and a bit eccentric, but quite a few people do get personalized number plates. And each number plate, there is a code. So, for example, if it is HW15, it is Hampshire white. 15 means the first part of the year 2005. So each number on the first four, the letters and the numbers correspond to a place and a year. So if it's HW66, it will be the second part of 2016. So it's like 16 plus 5. So it's the second half of the year. There is a whole kind of study. I could make a whole lesson about how to understand British number plates. But the other day, so my My number plate starts with HW, Hampshire White, because we are off of Hampshire on the Isle of Wight. And I was driving past Stonehenge, and there was a lorry, but from a company from the Isle of Wight, and he saw my registration plate, and he started, "Burp, burp," and he's doing like this. There is a kind of growing spirit of kind of community on the Isle of Wight. He got very excited because he saw I was from the Isle of Wight as well. Manual cars, the opposite of manual cars are automatics. So in America, a lot of cars are automatics. But in the UK, the majority of cars are manual. And this means we have a gearbox. So we have the gear stick here, first, second, third. Well, let me move first, second, third, fourth, push down and reverse. And then we push the clutch in. That's the pedal, the clutch, to change the gear. And of course, we also need a handbrake. So you clutch. No, not cloth. Sorry, everybody. Told you it was live. This is the clutch, like that. Clutch. You push the clutch down with your foot, your left foot, and you change the gear. It's called the clutch. And you push the gear stick into the position you want it to. So to be honest, I don't really enjoy driving a manual that much, but I'm sorry, I don't enjoy driving an automatic that much. I don't feel like it's a lot of British people get a bit defensive thinking that automatics are not real driving. Which do you prefer? Let me know, manual or automatic? Manual, all the way. The first 4 parts. Okay, so in that case, Hanan, I would go for the last 3 digits. Because the last 3 digits will be more unique than the first digits. Manual, Kame says automatic, manual, auto. Got a good 50-50 split here. So yeah, I think my wife, when she learns how to drive, will probably go automatic. It's less to think about. And they are quite useful, especially I've got a bad shoulder at the moment. Moving the gear stick can be a bit painful. Petrol, please don't say gas in the UK. Petrol is what the Americans call gas. Gas for us is a type of air. So when Americans come over and say, I want to buy some gas, we're like, no, petrol. We have petrol stations. They have like gas stations, I guess. So ours is a petrol station. And petrol is very expensive in the UK. I believe it's up to about 140, 130 something, £1.30 a litre. British people constantly complain. We constantly complain. So you hear people saying it costs a fortune to fill up the tank. So when you put petrol into the car, the place where it's stored is called a tank, and we fill up the tank. And finally, we have tires. These are the rubber things on your wheels. The rubber things on your wheels. I believe the police can stop you if they can't see the number. So be careful. Yeah, make sure your number plate is visible, because effectively they won't be aware if you're trying to obscure your number for a reason. This is a fascinating question, not really related to this one. Still struggling to speak in English. There are a lot of things that could be. No, I don't think you have problems. There are methods and processes, and you just haven't found the right one for you. But if you send me a message directly to Facebook, I think you're on Facebook there. Send me a message, and I can send you some lessons about small talk and things like this to help you with that. You're not the only one. What's this? G-Bay became UK near the number plate. Is it still? I haven't. We don't usually put them on because we don't often drive onto the continent. So I believe it's still. I think you see both. I don't think there's any law to change it at the moment. Yes, diesel and petrol. Make sure you put the right one on. So petrol is usually green and diesel is usually black at the petrol. Mateus, I'm a British English teacher. They both have qualities. They're both wonderful in their own rights, but I'm teaching British English. If you want to learn American English, that's absolutely fine. I suggest that you find an American teacher because I teach British English, and that doesn't really upset me. But it's I don't know by your name maybe it's like when I learned Portuguese, I learned Brazilian Portuguese, not Portuguese from Portugal. Why? Because my wife is Brazilian and I moved to Brazil. So it depends on what you want. I will never, I'm not here to slag off one language over another. So it depends on your needs. Tires, going to the British and American argument right there, with a Y in the UK. We spell it with a Y. The Americans spell it with an I. We spell it with a Y. So just be careful there. And flat tires are a constant hazard on narrow, potholed roads in the country. Ridiculous. We have a lot of holes in the roads. Awful. A lot of British people complain about this. So now let's talk about a cultural point. So Britain is very famous for being polite. It's not about flowery language, though. It's about avoiding conflict. And on the road, this shows up in certain ways. First of all, we rarely hear honking the horn. It's very rare, unless it's like a very near accident or maybe to get attention. It's very rare. You very rarely hear honking. Some countries you hear a lot of beep, 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 beep. It's not as common in the UK. It's seen as very aggressive by some. As well, if somebody lets you go past, or somebody, maybe you're coming one way and they're coming the other way, and they move over for you, it's courteous to give a little hand gesture like this. Put your hand up. They're trying somewhat to stop it. But I think it's still polite. A lot of people will put their hand up. They're not waving at you. I have a friend from Granada, and he's like, "Oh, I thought everybody was waving." And I was like, "No, no, no. It's just they're saying thank you." Sometimes they'll go like that. And it's just quite courteous. If you cross a pedestrian crossing, you should put your hand up to the cars to say thank you. And also, it is quite polite to allow people out of side roads or merge lanes. So especially if you're on the motorway and you see a car coming down the slip road and there is space in the middle road, move into the middle lane, the middle lane. So it is polite to allow people to go. Obviously, you don't have to let every single car go every time. Is what considered rude? Honking your horn? A little bit, yes. Can be. Politeness is also indirect. Yes, it is rude to honk your horn. And also, don't honk your horn at people. Just a side note, if you see a beautiful man or a beautiful woman at the side of the road, don't beep, beep, oi, oi. No. That culture died in the 1970s, please. So yeah, not really polite in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, sometimes, and you shouldn't really do it even to get, attention. Really, if you're maybe picking up your husband or your wife, it's a bit rude because it's noisy, disturbs people. So yeah, be cautious with that. Did you think it as well? Yeah, it's common. I thought it was really cute that my friend thought that. Like that. I thought it was cute. He must have thought British people are so friendly, waving at me all the time. So politeness is also quite indirect. So flashing of headlights. So you maybe flash your headlights twice. You flick them on and off. It usually means go ahead or after you. So if you're driving and you're indicating right and there are cars coming towards you and you see somebody flash, it probably means you go. They're probably telling you to go. But be careful with that one because it could also mean I'm coming through. So it can get a bit lost. Watch what the driver is doing. If they look like they're slowing down and they're flicking their lights, they're letting you through. So just be careful there. But 9 times out of 10, it's to say you go. So next up, queuing culture. British people are obsessed with fairness and waiting their turn. It's a national obsession, also shows up in traffic. Cars line up at roundabouts, junctions, and even motorway exits. People weaving in and out of traffic and trying to get past. It's not seen as very polite. Cutting the queue can be seen as quite rude and selfish, even on the road. So that's what I would say. And it comes down to this wider cultural value of order, patience, and fairness. And finally, following the rules. British people do love a rule. I realize this. The more and more I study my own culture, the more I realize that British people love a rule. They don't like breaking the rules too much. But they also love complaining about them. Oh, the bloody traffic rules again. Honestly. They hate the rules, but they love the rules, if that makes any sense. So we love to complain. Oh, bloody hell. The new. Oh, well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Also, I will say speed cameras are everywhere. And drivers tend to obey them. And you'll hear endless complaints about the ridiculous speed limits, but 9 times out of 10. I will also say if somebody drives unacceptably, people do not like it. The other night I was driving down a very dangerous road. A motorbike overtook me, was driving way over the speed limit. The speed limit is 60 miles an hour. And he went past. He was doing about 100 miles an hour. And he went past me and he kept going on the wrong side of the road. And then he passed another car and sweaved in and went straight over a roundabout. If he had been 20 seconds later, he would have been killed instantly and probably killed another person. And both me and the other drivers were like, idiot. So it's not seen as cool or fun to drive dangerously. Also, drink driving. Drink driving is socially completely, not only is it illegal, it is socially unacceptable. People do not like people who drink drive. The people that go, oh, no, I'm all right, I can have a couple of pints and still drive. No, most people don't like it at all. And that is about safety of others as well, social responsibility. And seatbelts are universal. If you sit in a car in the UK, front or back, you should wear a seatbelt. No. You have to wear a seatbelt. It is the law. It is a huge fine if a passenger is in your car without their seatbelt on. Sometimes Luciana will get in the car. That's my wife. She'll get in the car and she'll sit there and I will just sit there as well. And she'll say, are we going to go? And I'll go, in a minute. And she'll go, oh God, yeah. Straight on. It's very rare that she forgets, to be honest, but occasionally it happens. Yes, we are miles per hour, not kilometers per hour. So yeah, seatbelts are really important. Now you've asked me a lot about roundabouts. Let's go. Okay. There are 3 main types of roundabouts that you need to know. There are the multi-junction roundabouts that you get, especially in quite urban, well, not urban, but bigger sort of areas, the outskirts of major cities, particularly coming off the motorway. You get multi-junction ones. Those are the ones that you kind of wait your turn, you get into the correct lane. If you're in the wrong lane, go round. You shouldn't really, but go round. Don't try and cut into another lane and potentially cause an accident. Make sure you get onto the left lane, roughly about where you are, with great difficulty. How do you manage road flooding? Bloody difficulty. On the Isle of Wight, where I live, every now and then the roads flood. You just can't do anything. You just give up. This Spaghetti Junction in Birmingham as well. I don't know about the one in the USA, but it's awful. The other 2 main roundabouts that you need to know, there are ones that are slightly raised, usually with 4 roads. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. There could be less or 1 more. And there are ones that are completely flat. Technically, the flat ones, you can drive over them. The raised ones, you should go round. These are fascinating. You should always give way to the right. So if you are there and there is a car there, you wait for that car. that car has priority. So if you're here and there is a car on the other lane on the right there, or the other road there on the right, and then there's a car on their right, they wait for the car on the right and you wait for this one. So it's like you take it in turns. If 4 cars come at once, which does happen, it can be a bit like a Mexican standoff. That's an expression we have where nobody moves. Everyone's like, and people start to creep onto the roundabout, and probably the bravest one goes. So usually somebody will get onto the roundabout, and then that will start the movement of the other 3 cars. But you give way to the right. Don't worry, I will explain. You give way to the right. So roundabouts are circular junctions. Milton Keynes, the built city, has around 130 roundabouts. Some British people find roundabouts superior to traffic lights. Depends how you feel about roundabouts, I'll be honest. Americans, I don't believe Americans have them. Certainly not in the majority of states. They tend to do straight, and they have these kind of junctions, crossroads, I think they call them. And we have these roundabouts, we just go round. The Arc de Triomphe in France, at the end of the Champs-Élysées, is a good example of a roundabout, I believe, if I remember rightly. So you do have them across Europe. They're not exclusively British, but they do exist here. The motorway is a high-speed road. So on most roads, the speed limits vary from 20 to 60 miles an hour. If it's 60, it's usually a white circle with a black stripe. That tells you it's the national speed limit, which is 60 miles an hour. However, on the motorway, the speed limit is usually 70, although you can have some areas with slower speed limits, especially if there are kind of roadworks. Yeah, I don't think there are roundabouts in America, in the US. This was the whole thing about American cars in the 1960s or 70s. They didn't turn very well, but they were amazingly fast going straight. So in America, the motorways are called highways, and motorways typically have 3 or more lanes. You have the slow lane, the middle lane, and the fast lane. If you are going to drive slowly, don't drive in the fast lane. Okay. Just for the record, the M25 around London is infamous for being so slow and having so many traffic jams. We often refer to it as the world's biggest car park. Sorry. A dual carriageway, to answer your question. How do I say Enkbala? Enkbala's question. I'm going to go with that. Question. A dual carriageway has 2 lanes. It's a fast road as well, divided by a barrier. So there are 2 lanes on this side, a barrier, and 2 lanes on that side. So a dual carriageway just means 2 fast lanes. They usually have a speed limit of 70, but it can also be variable. So be careful. Not all 2 lanes are dual carriageways. Well, not all two lanes are 70s. Stay in the left lane usually, unless you're overtaking or going quickly. Zebra crossing. Okay. Famous. Can anybody tell me the most famous zebra crossing? So very quickly, it's a pedestrian crossing with black and white stripes. And they have 2 or 4 sort of orange circles on lights. Can anybody tell me which famous band crossed a zebra crossing? Abbey Road, absolutely. The Beatles. They could hog the fast lane. Absolutely, it was the Beatles. So the zebra crossing is the one. Notice we say zebra, the Americans say zebra, but I don't know what they call their crossing. It's a pedestrian crossing with black and white stripes, but there are no traffic lights. Now, there are lots of different types of crossings in the UK. There is also something called a pelican crossing. A pelican crossing has traffic lights, zigzags and traffic lights, and they have what we call a green man and a red man. You wait for the green man. You only cross technically when there is a green man. So you push a button, you wait, the traffic lights change, and you cross. So the difference between a zebra and a pelican is that the pelican has a button you can press and you wait for the green man. Now, I will say, at a zebra crossing, if a pedestrian is waiting on the zebra crossing, all cars must stop. You do not keep going. You must stop for the pedestrian. So always be aware. If there are traffic lights, you don't have to stop technically. But if there are black and white lines and no traffic lights and somebody is there, you wait for them. You stop. Pedestrians have right of way. Now, a couple of other points. There are also things called a puffin crossing and a toucan crossing. We like birds, apparently. I didn't know the difference, if I'm totally honest, so they're not really useful, but I will tell you, a puffin crossing is very similar to a pelican crossing with traffic lights and a green man, red man, but they have a sensor to detect when pedestrians have finished crossing the road. So they actually detect when there's no more pedestrians, because I always think it's quite dangerous for elderly people walking across the road if the traffic changes, if the lights change. And usually have this beep, 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 beep noise. And that's meant for deaf people, so they can also hear. And just before you step onto the road, there are little bumps. And those are for people who are visually impaired and they can feel with their feet where the road is. So that's that. And a toucan crossing is exactly pretty much the same as a pelican crossing, but it allows cyclists to cross as well. So the real ones you need to know are zebra and pelican. And traffic lights are those lights which tell the car to stop. If it is red, you stop. If it is amber, it's get ready to go. But some people will start to say go. So we don't say red, yellow, and green. It is red, amber, and green. You can start to move off on amber, but if you go too fast at the start, they will call you an amber gambler. Amber gambler, like it's a bit dangerous. Green is when you start to go. And amber will flash as well when you'll see amber and red when it's starting to change to red. So, those are some good words. Let me give you a few more. Slip road is the entry or exit to the motorway. The entry or exit to the motorway. The hard shoulder is an emergency lane on the motorway. You should not drive in the hard shoulder. If you do, you will be fined. So it is the thing on the side for cars that break down. A traffic jam, awful, is when cars are stuck and not moving. Roadworks are repairing the roads. Oh, bloody hell, there's actually roadworks on my road at the moment. It is awful. Can I tell you why red is the color for stopping? I mean, red always has that kind of idea of danger and sense like that, but I'm not entirely sure the semantics behind it. But I guess even stop signs with STOP or like the white line that says no entry, that's a no entry line. They're also in red. So I think it probably gets you to pay more attention, I would imagine, is the psychology behind it. And diversion, God, we hate a diversion. This is a forced detour, and you'll see these yellow signs with an arrow and diversion, and you'll have to go that way because there'll probably be roadworks or a road closed. Red sign with white writing will say road closed, and you go on a diversion. So, a lot of cultures, we talk about reserved behavior in British culture. British people like silence in terms of the horn. We don't use it like a language. And often road rage, so this aggression that people suffer from, we call it road rage. It's often quite passive aggressive, like a raised eyebrow, like a tut, a muttered, oh, you idiot, or a sarcastic, yeah, nice one, mate. We don't particularly like to confront, but maybe the people in the car will listen to us. Tonight, I was pulling out of the supermarket, and a guy nearly went into the side of me because he pulled out of the wrong lane, and and I said, Jesus Christ, what an idiot. And John, my son, heard that and went, who's an idiot? And I went, sorry, mate. I was like, that guy. Because he nearly went into the side of me. He was an idiot. But of course, I'm not going to like sticking my fingers up or anything like this. It's very rare that you will hear British people shouting out of the window. Um, so you may hear it. A couple of words you might hear, but again, it'll be inside the car, almost internalized, like idiot. We snarl a bit. It's like Muttley, that dog. Like this kind of thing. British people do turn a bit more aggressive in cars, but it's not external aggression. It's like an internalized anger. Plonker is a humorous insult. It's quite humorous. It's quite mild. Oh, he's a bit of a plonker. What an idiot. Oh, yeah, plonker. Numpty is more common in Scotland, but it also gets used in the south. And knackered means old and tired, but we often use it for cars. Look at that knackered. It's knackered, that car. Shouldn't be on the road. Okay, couple of other cultural points before we get on to some more vocabulary. Space and territory. Space in Britain, oh my God, I need to talk about this. Space in Britain is quite small. Narrow roads, terraced houses, cars parked quite tightly together. Be careful. Be careful. On my road, a lot of cars park and you have to kind of weave in and out. If there's another car coming, be careful. Drive accordingly because you will go into somebody. Awful. I've got to help though. You drive on the left, so I'm all right. Also, we have these narrow country lanes. I drove down one tonight. They are narrow, barely wide enough for 1.5 cars. They are two-way. There are no road markings because it's impossible to fit on either side. And occasionally there's a little space cut into the hedge. If two cars are coming towards each other, you brake very suddenly. You brake very suddenly, and the person nearest to a kind of sort of space should pull in to let the other person pass. Can you guess what the speed limit on most of these narrow, tiny roads are? What is the speed limit on most of these narrow, tiny roads where two cars are coming and there's barely space for 1.5? Tell me what you think is the speed limit on these roads. Most of them. Oh, God. That's 20. I love you. 40, you'd imagine, wouldn't you? Maximum. It's crazy. 30, sensible. I like this. 15, lovely. Come to the Isle of Wight, is all I'm going to say. Or down some roads that I went on the way from Windsor to the New Forest. A lot of these country roads in the countryside that are narrow enough for 1.5 roads are 60 miles an hour. I kid you not. There is a road not far from here called Burnt House Lane. If you put it, like Google it, it's on the Isle of Wight. I think it's called Burnt House Lane, like this. Have a look on Google Maps. It's close. Here. It is a 2-lane road at 60 miles an hour. There are turns like this, and if you drive at 60 down these roads, the chance of you having an accident is high. I believe you get a period of time that you can still use you can get an international license. I think you have a grace period. I'm not sure specifically on the India license though, but it should be. The other thing as well is about parking. Do not park in front of somebody's drive. This is a no-no. No. In kilometers, about 70 something, 75 maybe. They are 60 miles an hour, these roads. Please have a look at Burnt House Lane for an example of one of these roads. We've got videos. My wife and I have got videos of these roads. Around, I think it's around 70 something. 70. Depends where you are. City centres usually have paid parking on both the roads and on the in car parks. Uh, oh, is it more like 90? Oh, good God. Terrifying, isn't it? So 60 is more like 90, apparently, according to Kame. Awful, really. In more residential and suburban areas, you may get kind of thank you very much. You're welcome. So in more suburban areas, you get free parking. You should not park where there is a dropped curb. So the side of the pavement is called a curb. If it drops, do not park in front of a dropped curb. Number one, it is for people with mobility issues, perhaps use a wheelchair. So you are effectively blocking people. Do not also park on the. I'm going to tell you about this in a minute. Do not park on the pavement unless it's absolutely. But you really shouldn't park on the pavement. Some areas it seems to be more a done thing than others. But do not block somebody's driveway, please. And don't park in a disabled bay at a supermarket or in a unless you have a blue badge. Unless you have a blue badge. Now, there is a, I quite like it. There is a wonderful, so people get very angry at bad parking. There is a Facebook group I've discovered called Shite Parking UK. Shite is kind of really, really bad. It's like another way of saying shit, excuse my language, but Shite Parking UK. And it's basically people showing people parking badly. Like they'll take photos. I'll see if I can find you a little example of it. I quite enjoy it. Well, I can't find it offhand, but on Facebook, called Shite Parking, and basically people take photos of people that are parking like idiots. And people love to complain about this, especially if people are parking across 2 disabled bays or across 4. They've got special names like if they're on 4 in the middle, or they're parking on the pavement, things like this. It's horrible. So be very aware of how you park. British people, the weather has its own right. It has a character of its own. And rain, fog, ice, they all shape driving habits. So you've got things like fog lights for when it's foggy, special lights for when it's foggy. If it's icy, we have gritters out. So these are lorries that put grit onto the road, little stones, so you can drive and hold onto the road so you don't slip and slide. And if you can see the ice, that's okay. But sometimes you can't see the ice, and we call it black ice. Black ice. Lanes. Like that. Joanna, is your question. Not with an I. No I in that one, Joanna. So we have something called black ice. And black ice is invisible. This is winter, obviously. Black ice, you cannot see it. And as soon as you get onto black ice, you can spin your car. I have been in a car. I have driven a car that has spun on black ice. But the back end started to spin out. And immediately you have to start pumping the brake. And you have to turn into it. And hope for the best sometimes. But you pump the brake. You don't. If you put your brake full on, your car will just whiz, 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 whiz. So you need to pump the brake. It's called cadent braking. Cadent braking. So usually British people will be like, "Oh, be careful." They complain about the weather, but they prepare for it. So you'll always see these gritting lorries out, spreading grit across the winter. You're welcome. There is a certain. We need to talk about class in the UK. There is still a class system. Every now and then, a politician will tell you that the class war is over, but it seems to come back. Cars in Britain can be status symbols, but in a very subtle, class-conscious way. So you don't see many people, British people, with Ferraris or Rolls Royces unless they're exceptionally rich. Ferraris are slightly to indicate I love a Ferrari, but they can be quite impractical on certain roads because they're so low down. But something like a Range Rover or a Jaguar suggests maybe upper middle class. And a Ford Fiesta might symbol like a little bit less. So your car, people do judge you by your car somewhat. Also, to the extent I would say that if you're driving a car and you wash it yourself, maybe you're seen as not as kind of well-to-do as somebody who pays to have it done. So there is a class structure in this country. It's something I intend to talk about more, but yeah. So just be aware that certain cars denote certain class. The other day, when I was driving to Stonehenge, I saw an Aston Martin DB5, which is James Bond's original car. It was so fast, and I fell in love with that car. I wanted to take a photo. Well, my wife, I can't, because you can't use your phone while you're driving. Couldn't catch it. Too beautiful, too fast. We have something called boy racers and girl racers. We'll talk about this. This is usually young men in cheap cars that look a bit like, well, not necessarily cheap, but they're quite often cheap, that have got loud exhausts, and they're a bit fast and the furious. Oh, SHITE, shite parking. I'll share it with your group, don't worry. You're on the course, so I'll share it with the course. That'll be exciting watching that, because you can also see British people at the highest point of complaining. Also, the age where you can start driving is 17 in the UK. I believe you can start learning at... No, you can get your provisional at 17. I think you could get it at 16 as well. But you can't take your test until you're 17, I think. And insurance is very expensive, especially for young people. That's what I'd say. Bit more vocabulary. Brake means slow down. If you brake, you slow down. Notice the spelling. Accelerating is the opposite, which isn't there. Oh, well. Accelerating, we often say speed up, though, is more natural. Speed up is to increase speed. Overtake is where you pass another car. You have to overtake on the right. If you overtake on the left, it's called undertaking, and it is illegal. So you cannot pass a car on the left. You must pass them on the right, unless it's a filter lane. But if you're on a dual carriageway or motorway, you cannot go around somebody on the left. It is illegal. Reverse, go backwards. Indicate is use your signals. To give way means to yield. In other words, so you wait for another person to go. So you give way on the right, give way to the right on a roundabout. Stall is where the engine cuts out. Done it quite a few times when I was learning. And of course, if you, we sometimes say kangaroo petrol, your car starts blah, 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 when the clutch goes badly wrong. 3 verbs here for using the horn. Breathalyzer. Breathalyze someone. Breathalyze. 3 verbs here. Honk, beep, and pip. Pip's a bit more uncommon now, but they all work. Honk the horn, beep the horn, pip the horn. They all work. So driving is everyday life. It's quite natural. People prefer driving usually to buses unless you're in London. They prefer public transport. Commuting could be driving to work or the school run. This is important. School run. The school run is where drivers, usually in their SUVs and their blooming Volvos, they will drive to school, do the school run. Weekend trips and holidays and stopping off at motorway service stations are all part of everyday life. Motorway service stations, the place where you get your coffee and your pastries and maybe even your books at motorway service stations. They're called motorway service stations. But let's do a few expressions and idioms. I know we've only got 5 minutes. In the driving seat means in control. Can also be outside of the car. So on a project, he's in the driving seat. A backseat driver. A backseat driver is only for the car usually, and it's somebody who interferes with advice. Oh, take a left. No, you shouldn't do that. Do you want to drive? A backseat driver. My way or the highway is an American expression, but we use it in the UK because highway is American. Accept my rules or leave. So do things my way or leave. My way or the highway. And in the fast lane, can literally mean in the fast lane of the motorway, the fast lane, which is the right lane. Or sometimes it means a busy, ambitious lifestyle. He's living in the fast lane. So it's not exclusive to cars. So what does it tell you about British culture? There are a few things we're going to mention. Some nice vocab. It's all about politeness, the waves, the thank yous, the indicators. It's all about fairness, queuing, allowing people to enter, waiting your turn. It's about order, rules, roundabouts, speed limits. And it's also about bloody moaning and complaining. Backseat driver with an A, backseat. Bloody backseat drivers. It's also about moaning and complaining. It's part of the national character. We love to complain about the bloody traffic jams and all this kind of thing. I hate these bloody things. I hate these things. Before we move on a little bit, are there any cars in your country or your culture that people automatically think the person is a bit of an arse, a bit of a kind of idiot? Not an idiot, but maybe a bit arrogant and a bit aggressive. Like, oh, be careful, it's a driver. Are there any cars that have got a bit of a reputation that people tend to hate drivers of? I'd be intrigued. A few more terms that we need to talk about. Congestion charges in major cities like London. You have to pay. Taxi drivers are not popular. We're going to talk about one in a minute. Sometimes certain manufacturers get that, but I'm not going to mention it right now because it sounds like slander. Congestion charges, Ferraris. Oh God, I'd love a Ferrari. Congestion charges in cities like London. You have to pay to go through the city centre. One-way systems are a nightmare. This means you can only drive one way. It's not a two-way road, and you have to go round and round and round the bloody system. And a lot of cities have pedestrianised zones where it's only for pedestrians. Don't drive there; you will get a huge fine. So, boy racer, girl racer. I mentioned it's usually a young driver, often male, if I'm honest, in a cheap car, driving fast and showing off. You often get them backfiring, going up the road, and you go, oh, bloody hell. Typical boy racer. Sunday driver is a bit more like me. Drives so very slowly, a bit cautiously, as if they're out on a Sunday. Bloody hell, it's a Sunday driver. All right, granddad, move over. Sunday driver drives a bit too slowly, a bit too cautiously. Hogging the middle lane. So that's what somebody asked me earlier. If you stay in the middle lane, and you don't allow people to go into the middle lane, you're driving too slowly, you're making the cars on the left slow down because they can't undertake, and everyone's having to go round on the fast lane. It's called hogging the lane. You could hog the middle or the fast lane. Usually people sit in the middle lane. Rubbernecking is where a driver slows down to stare at an accident or something strange. There is a lot of rubbernecking opposite Stonehenge. Everybody stops to have a look, or they slow down, and then they speed up again. So you get this huge traffic jam going past Stonehenge. It's quite amazing. White van drivers. White vans have a really bad reputation, being aggressive, impatient, and not always polite on the road. In my experience, they're actually all right. They tend to be better than some cars. Probably because they're aware. It's a cultural characteristic, sometimes unfair. But if you see a white van driver coming up behind you, like, oh bloody hell, white van again! Oh, bloody white van tailgating me. That means they're on the practically on the bumper. Put your foot down means speed up. It's very informal. An old banger is a car that is very, very nearly blowing up. It's awful. Or a crap, unreliable car that's falling apart. Nip out obviously means to go somewhere or pop somewhere. Go somewhere quick. I'm just going to nip to the shops. I'm nipping out for a bit. just nip out to the shops, these kind of thing, and nip round the corner. And to cut someone up means when you dangerously pull in front of another driver, forcing them to brake. I hate this. So if a car goes, you're like, Jesus, you have to suddenly pump the brake because the car is going to drive into you, or you're going to drive into the back of them. That is called cutting you up. And it is something that British people hate. And finally, as well, if you go incredibly quickly, you can say, we are going flat out. Not overly often, but there's always speed cameras and things like that. I haven't, touch wood, been pulled over in years for my license or anything like that. Most people don't carry their ID anyway, so it's a bit fruitless. You'd probably have to go to the station. But yeah, it sounds a bit boy racer, girl racer. But we've learnt a lot tonight. Don't forget that this lesson will be added in 1 week's time to the British English Lesson Library. There is more information on that in the description below. And there are other ways to support these live shows, these live lessons that you can find out about as well in the comments. But from me today, I just wanted to say thank you very much. And on a side note, I wanted to say thank you to the wonderful student. I'm not going to mention you unless you want to be mentioned. But I will in our group. It's a member of my course. They're on the Ultimate British Pronunciation Guide, and they sent me a message this morning on my private number to say, because my students have access to me, and to say, Roy, I've got a great idea for a lesson. And I thought, well, actually, this is a brilliant lesson to talk about car vocabulary. So I hope that this lesson has been useful to a lot of you. If you have any other questions, put them in the comments, and I will answer them. Absolute pleasure. I love a good vocabulary lesson. You're very welcome. For me today, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. I will see you next week, and have a very lovely, lovely evening. Take care. Bye, guys. Bye, bye, bye.